Okay, this morning we're going to talk with Albert Brennan and Mike Parkinson, and the topic of conversation is going to be about Brennan Ford and how it evolved into such a big business in Nipigon and area. So Albert, give us just a start on your part then, even working for Elgar right then as a start.
Yeah, I worked for Elgar for, I think about 10 years. I started pretty young there, and I worked under Elvin. I started off in the body shop, really, and then when we had the fire, I was on my way to BC the next night with my best friend Sonny Dampier, and we were going to leave, and I went over to see Sonny, and I told him I'll pick you up at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. And he said, fine. And I went home, and my mother was in the kitchen ironing my jeans and had my bag and everything packed there. And I said, what's going on? She says, you better phone Elgar right now. And I said, well, what's going on? He said, he wants you to come back to work. So I phoned up Elgar, and he said, yes, I'm laying all these guys off. He said, I'm going to take you over to the body shop. I'm going to put you in mechanical. Oh, man, now I had to make this big decision. Am I going to stay or am I going to go? And I thought, my dad kept saying to me, you got to get a trade. You got no school, you got nothing. So I stayed, and I walked out of there. I went and worked under Elvin and with Elgar too. Got lots of business experience there and lots of mechanical experience.
And of course that's Alvin Riley.
Alvin Riley, yep.
Right.
And probably he's probably the best mechanic there was in Nipigon. Yeah. That's how much faith I have in that man. Had in him.
Yeah, I would agree with that one. Yeah.
And anyway, I went there. I finally got my ticket, and I went to leave. Elgar wasn't too happy when I left, but something was calling me to get going. So I was talking to Imperial Oil one day, and oh man, all of a sudden I got a phone call, and the garage in Red Rock's coming up. Would you be interested? And I said, gee, pretty young. I got no money. And they said, don't worry, we'll make it work. And so I thought, boy, I'm going to go. I said, you got to put one more hoist in there. I said, I want to have two guys there. And anyway, they did. And I thought, who am I going to get to come with me now? I need another mechanic. And at that time, my brother was working at Canadian Tire under Eddie Belanger. And he was in his fourth or 3.5 years of his apprenticeship. And he wasn't quite finished, so I went and talked to him. And he was married and everything too. And he was pretty hesitant at the time. He wasn't sure. I said, you better come. And I said, what? So he came and he was working with me over there. And that's where we started out. And I can take it from there if you want.
That's good. That's good. That's the start anyway, Albert. That's how it got started.
I'll jump up a year or two after that. One day I was under a car doing something and heard the door open, and I looked up and I could see this fella there, pretty fancy clothes on, and looked out and I see this great big gray Mercury Marquis. Oh man, this guy got to be a lawyer or something. So anyway, I heard him tell Ernie Riggs was working for me then. And Ernie says, Albert, there's a man who wants to talk to you here. So I went out into the front end, and it was Gary Tate from Ford Motor Company. And he said, you got a place where we can go and talk here? And I said, well, I don't have any office or anything in here, just this little one Ernie's in. But he said, well, got any other place in town? And I said, well, there's the Red Rock Inn. But I said, there's only a bar there. He said, well, let's go there. And he said, I just want to talk to you for about an hour. So anyway, going over, he never mentioned nothing or anything. We got downstairs and he orders a beer, and I said, well, what's going on? He said, I'm from Ford Motor Company, and he said, we've picked you to be a dealer in the area. And he said, would you be interested? Holy man, I said, never thought anything like this was ever going to come down the pipe.
How old would you have been then?
20, would I have been 26, 27, maybe?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
And anyway,
Wow.
I went, and then finally Gary came over to the house. Barbara made us supper and everything, and he didn't leave till quite late, and sounded like a really, really nice guy and everything. So I went into work the next day, and David was waiting. He says, well, what's going on? I said, I think I'm going to go and be a Ford dealer. Are you coming? Oh, I don't want to be. He said, I just don't want that. That's just too much on the plate. And I said, well, I'm going. I talked to Barbara. Barbara said, well, you got nothing to lose. We don't own anything yet. So away we went, and that was the beginning.
Wow.
Yeah. And we went and we did all our interviews in Winnipeg, and I'll never forget meeting the president of Ford of Canada, he had a great big office, and had his back turned to me, and I opened up the door and I walked in, and everything was blue in there. I'll never forget that, the big blue oval, they called it. And I walked in, and all of a sudden he turned around, so he says, "You want to get under the big blue umbrella, do you, kid?" And I said, "Yeah." Anyway, and there we went.
Wow.
And
So that's quite a start, and that is excellent history for us to know that that's how you got started.
yeah, we were pretty lucky.
You were, because, I mean, Brennan Ford is a household word.
And it seems like the stars were aligned for me to eventually come, because that was, I think, 1972 when he opened, and that was the exact year I arrived in Canada.
Wow.
But not here.
Yeah,
You know.
right. Wow.
So, well, I guess.
So then Ford helped you start in Nipigon then?
Oh no. We started Brennan Ford Mercury in Red Rock.
Oh.
They put the big blue sign up in the corner, and we made our first order of trucks and cars, and I think we got six trucks, and we put them out in the lot. And the rumor was in Red Rock that they were going on strike. Holy man! If the transport didn't come in with the trucks, and we parked them on the side there, and next morning I come down and I could see something from up on the top of the street, picket line right across by the garage. Holy man, David, he was a pretty nervous kid. He said, "Well, what are we going to do?" I said, "Well, we're here now." Anyway, those guys were coming in and out of the shop, and they're all looking at the trucks and everything. And I'll never forget Bob Krupp coming in, and we sold our first truck the next day.
Wow.
Just over $2,000. I'll never forget that. Go buy that same truck today.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then we never looked back after that. We just kept on going. And then I'll take you up until the time I guess it might come in.
Okay.
And we kept on going in Red Rock, and finally it was getting so big there. But Red Rock was good to us too. Holy man, we did a lot of business there. We'd come to work in the morning, and nobody phoned for appointments. They just drive to the mill and leave their car in the yard and then start phoning. Well, we were doing well, and I told David one day, I said, "I'm going to start looking around, man. We got to get out of here. This is next order car come in was 6 or 12, and we're having 20 cars over there sometimes. No place to park them." So one day I was going down to Nipigon to get something, and I looked at that Rudy Hendrickens place, and someone rumored to me that he'd like to get out. So I went in and seen Rudy, and he said yes. He said, "But I want cash money." And I said, "Oh, no worry, we'll get it." And anyway, we come to terms, and we started there, and I think we had a 16-foot trailer when you came, eh? Out in front.
Yeah, there was the original
Rudy's place.
Rudy's
place.
2-bay, typical, 2-bay service station with the gas pumps out front.
Yep.
So there was a little office where you went in to pay for your gas. So when we were selling cars, there was really no office, no sales office where you could be private,
Oh man.
So we had, I think it was like about an 18 or 19 foot
No,
camper trailer.
I don't even think it was
Maybe
that
it wasn't
big.
even that big. You pull behind your car. It was one of them. It wasn't,
was an
it wasn't
old
a
one?
nice office trailer. It was a camper trailer.
we were practically broke at that time.
It's still had a little bedroom in the back. We didn't use it as a bedroom. We had it just for storage, and I think it still had a sink and a stove in
Yeah,
there.
we had to get this oil stove to put in to keep the place warm.
Well,
And then-
in the winter, I'd come to work wearing, long underwear, a parker. I remember the parker, nylon parker with the fur around the hood. I never took it off all day. I had to keep it on inside the trailer as well, and I had to keep my pen in an inside pocket so that it would still write. You couldn't just leave a pen on the desk, it would freeze. Oh my God, I think people must have thought they had. When people came from, Thunder Bay to buy a car from us, they must have thought they had.
So
we
Albert,
were
you bought
hillbillies.
Rudy's place, but did Rudy own the other property as well?
Which one?
Well, when you bought Rudy's, how
Yeah,
much?
it was a big-
no.
it was a big piece of property.
It was, yes. There's
Oh, it
10
was?
acres there, yeah.
Oh, you
and the
did.
house and everything belonged to it, too.
Oh, and okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, they're all 10-acre lots up there.
Yeah.
And
So yeah, it came with all the property. It came with a little house, and who was the guy that lived there?
Bob Merrifield. Bob lived in the trailer.
Merrifield.
He
Yeah.
lived
Oh,
in the
that's
trailer,
right.
and then the house we fixed it up and rented it out after.
It even came with the dog.
Yeah.
Remember?
Shack.
Shag was it? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, Shag.
He become your friend.
Yeah, it came with a big German Shepherd, and it was
He was a night. He
when-
looked after the place.
Oh, did he ever? When I first started there, of course, Albert was still in Red Rock. David he'd got to know the dog, you know. When I started there, if I got there before David, I had to wait till David got there because that dog would have tore me apart.
Oh, he'd jump as high as the door at you.
He would hit that big glass door with all 4 feet and just scare the daylights out of you. So, yeah, it was a while before I could get in first, you know. Yeah.
So who else worked there when you first
Well,
started then?
That's another story. David comes to me one day, and I let David go to Nipigon. Red Rock, we just couldn't let it go. It was so
No,
good.
it was performing so well, that place.
Those 2 stalls over there outdid the Nipigon dealership when, you know, like for performance and money making or anything. The 2 stalls in Red Rock always outdone the Nipigon garage until Mike and I got together and we put the new addition on the mechanical part. But yeah, I let David go, and so he says he was down in the International Hotel one night talking to Leo Bloom. Leo said, "I'd like to quit that mill and become a mechanic and work for you." David come and put it by me. I said, "Hey, I'm all in favor. Let's do it." We had nobody in the shop there. It was, you know, the sales were just, they were starting to come pretty good. And so we got Leo in there, and he was busy, and then we had David in the front, and that's what we carried on with, and we still had Red Rock going too. But we had lots of room to park cars.
So in Red Rock, part of your business would have been the fellows who came to the mill then.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
but people that bought cars in Red Rock from us, all their servicing was done there and everything too.
Everything, yeah.
Like it was 2 outlets actually.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah. And then we were starting to hire. I had hired old Ernie Riggs. He was 80 years old. He was a bookkeeper.
I remember.
And Barbara had done all the books before that. She was looking after everybody. It was just getting bigger and bigger. And she was working in the mill at the time. And she just had to phase out of that. We had to hire somebody else. And we had Ernie. And yeah, it was just starting to grow and just kept on going.
So those years ago, you made the right decision.
Yeah, you know, I'll carry on with that after.
Yeah.
We got in at the right time too.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were very, very fortunate, eh, Mike?
Yeah, they say timing is everything, you know.
Yeah.
And it definitely was in our case,
Yeah.
that's for sure.
Well, we lost the Red Rock garage too, completely, and that was a while back.
You see that side? Yeah.
From
Did it start? Did you ever know it started?
no,
Never did.
no.
eh?
It was there was an old fuel oil furnace in it in the back. The garage was old, Glenna, really old. But we rented that from Imperial Oil. The deal I made with them was, they said if you'll get they called it TBA, tires, batteries, and accessories. You had to buy that all from Imperial Oil. You couldn't buy it no place else. And they said if we got that up, or I made the deal with them, if we got it up to what they wanted us to get it to, they would sell me the place.
Oh.
And anyway, we did that. And I think our rent when we went there was $90 a month. From Imperial Oil. They were good. They were really good to us too. And so the year came up, and I went and seen John Parr in Thunder Bay. He was the head guy from Imperial Oil for the whole Thunder Bay area. I said, we made a deal. I got it right here. He said, I know. And anyway, I think we bought it. I think we paid like $10,000 for the garage or something at that time. Yeah, and it was up and running, and they put new tanks in the ground for us then. And yeah, it was pretty good.
Timing everything, eh?
Yes.
Timing is everything, yeah.
Yeah.
But then I think it carried on, and we needed a salesman in Nipigon.
Well, I had come to Nipigon I was in Winnipeg for 3 years, where I had worked at an import dealer, a British Leyland dealer. Don Evans also worked for the same dealership. So it was a small dealership, so everybody knew everybody. I wouldn't say we were best chums or anything, but we were certainly good friends, you know. And Donnie announced one day that he had bought a dealership in Nipigon, or a garage in Nipigon. He was going to be the Chevy dealer in Nipigon, and I just, good luck, And that was that. I didn't even know where Nipigon was. I didn't care where Nipigon was, to be honest, And anyway, it was just months later I got a phone call from Don if I'd come and work for him. So the first thing I did was get a map out just to see where Nipigon was. And he flew me to Thunder Bay, picked me up, showed me around, and flew me back to Winnipeg, and I handed in my 2 weeks notice, and I moved to Nipigon. That would have been 75 or 6 maybe. And I worked for Don for about a year.
So how old were you at that time?
I would have been then, I was 24 when I came to Canada, so I would have been, 27 maybe.
Okay, so you and Albert are about the same age.
Yeah, I think you're maybe a year older than me.
Okay.
Anyway, I decided I didn't really want to stay any longer at Riverside, so I went up to see David, because they just kind of got going in Nipigon at that time, and he, basically hired me on the spot. So I then became a Ford salesman instead of a Chevy salesman, and again, I could have gone back to Winnipeg too. That was an option for me too. I talked to my old boss in Winnipeg, and he said, "Yeah, come back. You got your job back if you want it." But I'd met people in Nipigon. It was a fun place then. Nipigon was a fun place in the late 70s, mid to late 70s. My goodness. So I didn't want to leave really, So that's why I went to see the Brennan boys, and and that's when I, really got the bug about selling cars and being in business, and I could see the potential of it, So when David, kind of jumping the gun there, but when David decided he would like to pursue his dreams, which didn't involve selling cars or fixing cars, it involved fishing and hunting, I saw that as an opportunity for me too. David saw it as an opportunity for him to get out, and I saw it as my opportunity to get in. So David and I hammered out a deal, and I became Albert's partner. And that's when things really started taking off.
That's when things started happening, when Mike signed that piece of paper that he wanted to be a partner. We're opposites, eh?
And lots of people, though, remember Mike as a salesman.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, they do. When you talk to people, they remember buying vehicles from Mike, right?
Oh yeah, and there were lots of them.
Not very many people remembered seeing Albert's face around there.
Well, for a while he wasn't there.
I wasn't there for the first
so
one.
it was mostly that you did.
Yeah.
You saw Mike
Yeah.
there for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, we were like the yin and yang there. Albert's expertise was in the service end of things. So while he didn't work in the shop, he was still, that was his area of expertise, and I'm not a mechanic. Good grief, I can't even change oil on a car. So mine was at the sales end of things. So
Right. Okay, we'll stop there while he changes. We're back again, and Albert's got some newspaper articles, so we're going to look to see if he can remember some of those people. This is 1997, so who would have been there, Albert?
Well, we'd gone through a lot more employees than this. Like I say, we had Elvin Leo. I'm pretty sure Marvin Salo was even there for a while. Paul Cantley, Wyatt Pollock got their tickets under us, and so did Paul Cantley. Alan Paley got his mechanic's license there too. They'd all been there and gone. Like we had probably gone through. This is quite a ways into it, eh? Like this is
Right.
not the beginning by
Right.
any means.
No, but that's good just to
Yeah, yeah.
review who
Well,
was
we'll
there.
start off here. That's my son Mitch. He was gonna. We were kind of nursing him into going in, but he went down for an interview in Oakville, and I tell you, he come back. I said, "You sure you want to do this?" And he was saying so. He went down, and by this time Ford was starting to tell you, "You got to bring. We want all our gas stations brought up to look like one another." And they all look the same. When you look at a Ford dealership now, they're all the same. And our building was smaller, and I figured we were going to have to spend between $500,000 and $750,000 to upgrade it, and I didn't really want Mitch to get into this. He's got a good job there. He was, starting out already, looking at the police and everything else, and he went into that. But he didn't stay. He went on. And then behind him is Peter Waghorn. That's Mike's nephew, eh, Mike?
That's my brother-in-law.
Brother-in-law, I'm sorry.
And he's still there.
And he's the longest
Yep.
seniority guy at Brennan's now. This is 1970
97.
or 97, and he'd probably been there a little while then, And he's
No, I think you were there, Mike, when oh, yeah, for sure he was, yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's Alan Paley, and we had Vern Maynard came as a salesman too.
Yeah, Herman remembered him.
And then there's Danny Reset. We stole him out of Wawa. He was a transmission man. Then there's Pierre Paquette, one of the best employees we ever had. Could do anything. You hand him a slip in the morning and say, "What do you want me to do?" And I never had a check on him all day or nothing. Then there was this fella from Thunder Bay. What was his name? He was a parts man.
Yeah, I just can't remember.
Yeah, anyway, he was there. And then there's Kitty. Well, holy man, I'll tell you, if you want to have an employee, that's the
Kitty
one.
Coyston and Ray.
Then Kitty Coyson and now Kitty
Yeah.
Demonsky.
Yes,
Yeah.
I can tell you a story about her. I was out selling a truck in the yard, and I looked, and there was 2 or 3 other people in the yard. All I had to do was walk in and give her the numbers, and Kitty could take it and finish it. And I go out and sell another truck. Yeah. And then that's Carlo right there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Carlo Costa.
yeah. And that's, what's his name? He was in parts too. Adrian.
Oh yeah, Adrian Airy.
Airy, yeah.
Harry. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then there's Phil McCallan's wife, Fawn. I don't know who this guy is. I guess that's me.
That must be you.
And that's you, for God's sakes, right
Yeah,
there.
right there, yeah.
The long-haired bazoony. Anyway, then there's beside me is Doug Mentions. He came from Newfoundland to work for us. I called him on the phone, and I don't know what was going on down there, but I don't think he was a happy camper down there. And I said, I'll fly you up, I'll pay your way and everything. And he came up, very, very good body man.
Wow.
Excellent. Body
Oh, body man, right?
Still is a good body man.
Yeah, he still is, right. Okay, just go by. We're looking at papers.
Mike can talk to you about that.
And it's another shame we don't have sports and trade shows. They're a lot of work, but they were good.
And
They were good.
This is another story too, Glenn. We were the Honda. We had a Honda motors and quads and everything too in the showroom when we were there.
Oh, I didn't remember that.
Yes.
So
Yeah, it was
quads were just starting then.
Well, actually, I don't know.
We had the trikes.
I'm not even sure. Was that a
trike?
That's a
that one
quad.
of-
That's my quad right there.
Yeah, but were we selling them?
Oh yeah, they had just started to come.
We had the 3-wheelers. Remember the big red?
Yeah,
The
I
3-wheeler?
had one.
Yeah. Oh man.
I know. I think you guys bought it there.
Yeah.
Deadly machine, literally. But we had the Honda Power Equipment franchise. So it was just, and I think that was a part of our success was, we did things that you couldn't really justify opening up a business to sell Honda Power Equipment. There wasn't enough of it. There wasn't enough profit in it. But when you just add it to what you're doing, your overhead is already it's already there, whether you have this stuff in your inventory or not. So it was just another extra little thing. It was just like our propane. We were the superior propane dealer. Again, you couldn't make a living selling propane, but it was just another wrinkle in the thing. And
It was a lot different then too, Mike. Like CP would come and
Oh,
they'd
there
bring
was a
that
lot more
big
propane.
truck and sometimes 60, 100-pound bottles. I put a guy like Leo Bloom out there at 9 o'clock in the morning, and he was still pumping propane at 1 o'clock steady. Yeah, times
and
have
everybody
changed
that
so
had a
much.
summer camp
Yes.
had a 100-pound tank. Nobody had electrical power to their camp. So it was a good business for sure.
And there was no such thing then as certified tanks or nothing. You could bring anything in and fill it. Yeah.
Tell me, the Girl Guide camp had those great big
Exactly.
ones. Oh, they were a nuisance anyway. But anyway, we could just add that picture there. What's that there? Whoops. I didn't even remember about the quads. I was thinking more of the trikes.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
trikes for sure. We sold a bunch of. And our idea, to be honest, was, hey, it was a little something else,
Right.
But we
Yeah.
thought, well, it'll also be, a bit of extra service work for the shop. Well, it didn't turn out that
No.
way because they never broke down. You'd get a generator came in a cardboard box from Japan. You'd open the box, lift it out, put gas in it, put oil in it, and go turn it off, put it back in the box. Say, there you go.
That's about it.
Like, and then you never saw it again. So it really wasn't much of an addition to our mechanical shop. But it was just something else to sell, and
Right.
yeah.
So this is at the trade show, though.
That was at the
This
arena,
is-
yeah.
You brought. I remember the trade show there. And as I say, it's too bad we still don't have them. I always thought they were interesting, but I imagine they were
Oh,
lots of
I
work.
think they'd fill the arena right full with people from Thunder Bay and everything if
Yeah.
they had it.
Yeah, really good. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's neat. I don't recall ever seeing them pictures before.
Well,
So
that's
when-
you.
That's me, isn't it? For sure.
So when
obviously
when you started to expand out there,
That's next, yep.
yeah, because I said I can't remember. How come I can't remember going by there and seeing that building being built? I
Well,
can't remember that.
we added the 2 big stalls on, and they were actually bigger than 2 stalls. We built a body shop first, and that's what that is on the side of Rudy's.
Oh yes,
That's
right.
what we put on
Yeah,
there.
there was a big paint booth inside there, and and then we built another building, sort of on the Thunder Bay side of that building, and ended up that being too small too.
Well,
as it
At one time, we had 3 bodymen in there, 3 qualified bodymen. We had 17 people working there in the heyday.
Yeah, well, I mean, you got quite a few in that picture.
No, it was
there.
bigger than that.
Yeah, yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty intense. But
So Benjamin was a body man. Who else was a body man?
we had the Banderas. You know who worked there? Johnny Walters. When
Did he?
we first started, John Walters was a body man, and he was working there. And I think he left, and I think he went to BC.
yeah, he's still in BC.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh man, things you got to remember.
Yeah.
It's a good job. Okay, so talk about your expansion a bit then.
Okay, we did. No, David and I did that, eh? Was that?
Yeah,
it?
yeah,
No,
the
but
first-
you, but
the
you were a
first-
parts man, or you were a salesman.
I
then.
was salesman.
Yeah,
but,
and
but
we-
I was just an employee.
Yeah, and no, we decided which way we were going to go. We thought, well, no, we built the dealership, which wasn't as big as it is now.
No, that's what I
So
said.
we built that first,
There
and we
was,
just
there was a
Rudy
small
first-
showroom,
Yeah.
sort of a small showroom with
Parts-
a little office in one corner,
Yeah,
a little reception, little parts department,
yeah,
and that was
2
it.
big stalls.
and 2 big stalls.
That was Ford was forcing us at that point even to go.
But then it became obvious, especially when Albert came over to Red Rock, or from Red Rock to Nipigon, we needed more office space. So we built a little addition on the side,
3 offices.
just a little, almost like a glorified lean-to, really, just on the side, with 3 offices in it. Then we needed another expansion on the mechanical side, and that's when the big shop that's there now got built.
That's 12 more stalls we put in.
Yeah.
12 good stalls. You could probably get. We were looking the other day there, and I think we could have got 16 vehicles in there to thaw them overnight and stuff. But you could run 12 vehicles in there pretty easy.
Wow.
But they were full, like I say. At one time there, I think they're down to 1 mechanic at the dealership now. But we had. Oh man, I bet you we had 4 Class A's in there, and apprentices under them and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then
And actually, Carlo was there right from.
yep, he got his apprenticeship there
He
too.
started his apprenticeship at
Who's that?
Brennen. Carlo
Kaustonen.
Kaustonen, and worked there right until he retired. And he retired as shop foreman.
Wow.
Yeah, he was
So-
lead hand there for.
And he was he was there. As vehicles were starting to change, a lot of more electronics and fuel injection, electronic ignition, etc., and all the emission control stuff. There was a lot of training had to be done on that, and Carlo was because he was a young guy and
Right.
Carlo is a very smart guy, and so he got all the training, and So he was really our ace in the hole for all that stuff, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's another thing that Ford was demanding too. We had to have everybody up to date. There was a couple of years there. We were every second month we were sending somebody away for upgrading.
Course, yeah.
For training, yeah. And because what they would say is, you know, if you aren't trained on this particular aspect, then you couldn't put a warranty claim through because you weren't trained to be doing it in the first place. Well, obviously you couldn't do that. You know, how do you sell something and then tell somebody, yeah, and if you have a problem with that particular part of your car, you're going to have to take it to Thunder Bay. You know, so obviously, yeah. So you were forced to have your guys trained. And Carlo was because he was a young guy, sharp. He was the guy that got the training. So he was a very key man there. Yeah.
Okay. And funny, I mean, I know Carlo all his life. I don't ever remember him being a mechanic. I think of Eddie as Eddie Kosonen as a mechanic who moved out west. That's what he does out in Lethbridge.
Eddie, isn't Eddie in Thunder Bay?
Is he back in Thunder Bay? Oh, I thought he
I
was
don't know.
still
I
out
don't
west.
even know an Eddie Kosonen. Oh, well, anyway.
I think there was only 2 boys, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, Pavel.
Pavel.
Pavel,
No, I'm
yeah.
sorry. I got
Yeah.
mixed up with Pavel.
Yeah, Pavel
Eddie married Norma
Exactly.
Harper. They
Exactly.
lived
Okay.
out west.
Right on.
So I didn't really remember Carlo. But Herman remembered him being there. Yeah, for sure.
And another fellow that worked in sales up there at one point too was Herman Manila.
Oh yeah, Herman worked there. When so after I think he had got out of the
Brewery.
well, and the convenience store there.
Yeah, he was out of there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and he came and worked for
He
us.
knew a lot of people in the
Oh
area.
my God.
Yeah. Now, Herman wanted to know if Tom Pigeon worked for you.
Yes, Tom
Yes,
worked for us.
he worked for a while
too.
after.
Yeah.
That was a little bit later on, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Herman remembered him.
Yeah, he was a salesman there for a while. Actually, Tom became a part of the marathon.
Yeah, we had what happened. I can't even remember what year that was now.
That was when Himlo. We were snooping before the mine even went in.
Well, what had happened? Well, we always did well in Marathon. We always sold vehicles in Marathon and Manitouage. And I know people think of it in terms of just, Nipigon Red Rock, but
No.
our catchment area where we sold a lot of vehicles, obviously it was Thunder Bay, but Geraldton, Long Lac was really good to us. But we also did well in Marathon, Manitouage, and Ford had indicated that they were looking for a dealer in Marathon. And the way it had to work was they would contact the dealers on either side, which would have been Figlamini's, Inscriber, and I think, is it Northern Lights
Oh, yeah.
in White River?
Yeah.
And they weren't interested. So now it's an open for anybody. And we thought, well, if we're going to have competition in Marathon, it may as well be us. We'll be our own competition.
Right.
And we went there, made a deal with on a building. We hired mechanics and parts people, and we made a deal with Tom and Gary McDonald, who worked for us,
Oh, right.
and they went to Marathon as
And Aries, or Eddie Collar.
Oh,
When
yeah.
and
he's a
Eddie
person-
Collar.
I
Yeah,
had
that's
his name
right. Oh
down
my
here,
God,
too,
Eddie
yeah.
Collar. That's
Yeah.
right too. Yeah. Anyway, it didn't work out real well, and we ended up selling our shares to Tom and Gary, and eventually it went bankrupt. But
It was just too far.
we couldn't manage it.
And we were so
Right,
busy
too
here.
far. Right.
Yeah,
right.
because it was a day out of you. It was 2 hours to get there, 2 hours to get back. How much time are you going to spend there?
Right.
So it was just a bad idea for us to be involved in it. Which is why we ended up selling our shares and getting out. But yeah, you got to try these things.
That's right.
I would have to say, though, the best area that we ever had for sales was Long Lac.
What is it?
Long Lac was very good to us.
Well, what really worked in our favor, actually it worked in our favor here too, when Kimberly Clark got rid of their woodlands, as did Domtar. They didn't get, they still needed wood, but they weren't harvesting that wood with their employees. They had contractors doing it for them. Well, all those contractors that previously had a Kimberly Clark truck or a Domtar truck now had to get a truck.
And everybody that worked under them, they had to get them to the bush.
Yeah. So we sold, and it was, you know, not little run around pickup trucks. They were big.
They were French people, and they liked their
and
fancy toys.
Oh
boy.
my God, we sold some
very
beauties
competitive.
up there, you know, yeah.
I could tell you a story. I got a phone call Thursday morning, and I just forget the fella's name. He says, Albert, I need 5 trucks. I'll be there Saturday to get them. This is what I want. I want running boards. I want sun visors. I want the lights on them. I want mud flaps. I want box liners. I said, Saturday morning. And Peter was working in the shop. I think Peter worked right through. He never went home, and we had them ready Saturday morning for them.
Wow.
But there was just...
And these were so, we did a lot of that.
Yeah.
I think, you know, our reputation had, was good enough that a lot of people would do a deal over the phone. We had lots of, you know.
I'll tell you a good one. I'm sitting there one morning, and the Greyhound bus pulls in. And
we're not a stop on the Greyhound bus route, but
he pulled right in, and people would get off with their license plates under their arm. And I walked in, I said to Mike, what do I do with this guy? He said, whatever you want. He's not going home.
He's not going home without a truck by the look of things, you know.
Anyway, no, but that happened, and not a lot more than once.
Oh, I'm lost.
And
Yeah.
up north, the Native Society, oh my gosh, they were super good to us too. Remember Dave Waboose and people like that?
Oh yeah, my
Oh,
goodness.
my gosh,
we
yeah.
did, yeah.
Yeah.
And what would happen with a lot of those customers up there, once you had,
You put one in there.
you know, you'd proven to them that you were worthy of their business and you were a good guy, they would send us so much business. It was unbelievable. Who was the guy in Geraldton, the big...
Okay.
But he bought the big black Bronco that time.
I can't remember. Anyway, if you want to,
Yeah.
while you do that, well,
Yeah.
try and think of it.
Okay, so now we're discussing the fact that the catchment area is really expanding north and including Long Lap.
Yeah, and like I say, we had such I think, a good reputation with people in those areas that a lot of the sales were done over the phone, or in some cases, they came down ready to buy a car. They came down to buy it. They were going to drive home in a car or a truck. So partly because of our reputation, partly because of some of the people we had as customers in those areas would spread the word. And this one guy, this Neil McCardrum, he would drive them down and say, "This is Mike. You can trust this guy. Whatever he tells you is the way it is." And I think, well, my philosophy always was, I don't want to sell you a car or a truck. I want to sell you all your cars and all your trucks. And I want to sell your parents a car, and your children a car, and your neighbor a car. So, you know, it was in our interest then to make sure that you, when you drove away and you knew you had a nice, warm, fuzzy feeling about it, you know. And, and that's why it worked.
So over the years, do you think it moved from cars a bit more to trucks?
Yeah.
Oh,
It always
trucks was our...
Oh, well, trucks was
That's another thing that happened to us too. The Ford dealers in Thunder Bay, we were well, 1 month, what did we were close to 40 units or something.
I think one of our best months we sold about 40 vehicles.
That's a lot.
Now there's only 30 days in a month, you know, so you're really giving her, and some of them days are Sundays, which were not open, you know.
Right.
So we had months that, well, I remember one day in particular, and there was a few days like this. I wouldn't say we sold them all that day. Some were sold days previously. Some had been factory ordered maybe 8 weeks ago that had just shown up, and then plus stuff we were selling on the day. But at the end of that day, I remember, it was just a blur. And we sat down with Albert and I said, I hope everything that left here today was paid for.
I remember that.
Because honestly, it was, you weren't steering the ship. The ship was steering you. It seemed that way, you know. We were just so busy. It was stupid busy.
Yeah, it was coming that we weren't getting a lot of time off and everything too. You know, you're there, and we were running the tow truck too and everything. There'd be days I'd be to Geraldton and back, and Mike would be coming in, and I'd be sitting in my office, and he didn't know I was to Geraldton and back already.
Well, he was on call too, on the tow truck.
Yeah.
And again, that was another thing that, you know, we didn't miss anything. People said, well, how much money do you make on a tow truck? Well, it's not bad, but the thing is you're towing that vehicle to your shop. Now, it didn't mean that you were going to fix it, but the chances are you were going to fix it. If it was a car wreck, we had a body shop.
Right.
You know, why would you take it? It's already here, you know. So it was, so Albert on the tow truck, and Mitch, his son Mitch, also drove the tow truck. So, no, that was a big part of the success story too, as far as, I say, no stone was left unturned.
But we had a yard in Long Lac too, Glenna.
Oh, did you?
Yes.
Yeah, it didn't work out super well.
It wasn't
for us,
super good.
but it got our name.
Yes.
You know, and
it was there.
It was,
Right.
we were a presence there.
Right.
So
Guys would buy the vehicles there, and then they'd come to Nipigon to get the deal finalized. Stuff
Yeah.
like that going on, you know, like.
So in those days, what was the turnaround if you said you factory ordered something? Like,
we used to tell people 6 to 8 weeks.
6 weeks, yeah.
And that was generally, you know, sometimes that wasn't the case. If you were ordering something that was in short supply. I remember when, you know, the diesel truck first came out, I didn't promise any delivery dates on those, you know. But if you were ordering a regular pickup truck or a regular car, 6 to 8 weeks, and we sold a lot like that. You know.
so then on your lot, these were just ones that you knew were going to be popular sales items.
You hope so.
So you would order those.
At one time, Glenna, we could order as many trucks as we wanted, but that came to a screeching halt. Remember that?
Well, because we were ordering so many, I think, you know.
and selling so many trucks.
Yeah. Well, Ford Motor Company said, you know, you need, if you want to order
10 trucks.
6 trucks or 10 trucks, you have to order
3 Pintos.
Yeah, 3 Pintos and a Mustang. And we were,
We hated cars. There wasn't that much money in cars as there was in trucks.
yeah, and it wasn't a car market, you know.
Not here.
Not here, anyway, you know. So,
It
but
still isn't.
and it still isn't. Well,
No.
Ford Motor Company now don't make a car.
And
How
then
about that? You know.
There was other things we were into too, though. We had the car rental business there,
We had Hertz.
Hertz. And then we were the first cell
We had
phone
U-Haul.
dealer
I was
in
just gonna
Nipigon.
say,
And
I
I
think
tell
we
you,
bought our first one from you.
Kitty looked after that, and Barbara looked after it too at the time. And we did very good on that.
That was the
Oh,
bag
my
phone,
God. The
right?
bag phones. And,
Yes,
Yeah,
right.
everybody that had a camp had to have a bag phone.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. I remember that.
Yeah,
now.
and-
Yeah.
oh.
I still see, you know, when somebody gives me their phone number,
Yeah,
their cell phone number.
it's still the same.
I know it's one that we sold back then. If you had a number, if you have a cell phone
It never changes.
that's, you know, 887 4 something, now you probably got that from Brennan's.
Yeah.
Because all Thunder Bay's numbers were 3 something or
Mine
2
is 4,
something.
5, 8,
Yeah,
9.
yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
that was, yeah.
So tell the other thing I was interested. How were they delivered in those days? Only by truck?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember at Wright's, they used to come in boxcars.
Did
Yes, 2 or 3 to a boxcar, and they were like this. And to get them out there, yeah, I bought. When I was at Wright's, I bought my '66 Belvedere GTX from Elgar, and I went to Thunder Bay, and it came in on a steamship, or from the thing, and I drove it right off. It was all covered in this white protective coating, and Sonny Damper was with me. We went and got it. Yeah.
Well, Herman said he could remember Elgar hiring guys to go to Thunder Bay
Yep.
and drive the cars back.
Oh,
Herman
yeah.
did that several times
Yep.
for him.
They were
too,
coming
so-
in on the ships
and
then.
on the ships then. Wow.
Well, then they had a yard in Thunder Bay, so they came into Thunder Bay on rail, and then
The auto carriers carried them out.
auto carriers brought them to us and to.
I can remember the auto carriers, the drivers buying trucks from us.
Actually,
John was his name.
you know, people have said since, I know, jumping ahead a little bit now, but, you know, when we retired, people have said, oh, do you miss it, you know, Brennan's? Do you miss not being there? And I said, well, not really, but what I do miss is all the people that we used to be in contact with, and some of them were obviously customers, you know. We had customers that would just stop in from Long Lac or they'd stop in. We were the Tim Hortons before Tim Hortons.
Yeah.
They would stop in for a coffee and use the bathroom on the way to Thunder Bay. But it was, you know, like the guys that drove the truck, the car transporter trucks. You know, we became friends.
Right.
And then the one guy, I can't remember his name right now, but then his son ended up.
John,
being-
his dad, he still drives. He blows the horn when he goes by.
So, you know, these were,
Yeah. And that is the way when people retire. That's mostly what they miss.
It was
is
the
the camaraderie
social thing.
of the
yeah,
social times.
yeah.
Right.
I sure didn't miss going to work.
Right.
I've been in Thunder Bay with people that, you know, good friends of mine, and we're walking around Walmart or we're in Canadian Tire, and a gal come over and start talking to me. How many people do you know up here? Lots. Yeah.
Okay, so now just tell us how it wound down, how you sort of wound down.
Well, I'll tell you a story. Mike kept a graph from the time that he started with me of every month of how many vehicles we had sold. Remember that?
Hmm. I kept it up on the wall
Yeah,
because it
and,
was
you know,
good for customers to see it too.
He
You know, I
come to
wasn't
me a couple of times and he said, you know, this is starting to think.
trending down slightly.
And
you know.
there was a change coming in the automobile industry right then. And you could feel it. Like a lot of the mills were talking going down. Thunder Bay was pushing in. Long Lac was going to go. And japers, we looked at that for about 3 months, and I said, you know, Mike, I just about had enough of this too. And Mike was saying, well, do you think we can get out? And I know. See, we owned all the buildings. They were all ours. They were all paid for. Everything was paid for up there, and now you've got Ford Motor Company to deal with. Well,
Yeah, it's
oh,
okay, you
man.
finding a buyer, but it'd have to be a buyer that Ford Motor Company liked as well. Well, I mean, you could sell the property, but you couldn't sell the Ford sign.
And who's going to come along with that kind of money to buy a dealership?
And
you
the
know?
people that had that kind of money, did they want to move to Nipigon? You know, it was hard to attract somebody from a major centre to come and live in a small Northern Ontario town, you know. So you couldn't really plan, say, well, we're going to work another 5 years and then we're going to retire. You couldn't really plan that, you know, because you could retire when you found a buyer.
Well,
And,
that's how it came.
yeah.
That's what we said. If we can get this, if we can keep it like this for 5 more years, we can get out of here and live pretty good for the rest of our lives. You know, and that's what it's all about. I mean, if you're going to be in a business like that, it's when you get in and when you can get out, because we're all going to the same place.
yeah, we are.
And I had at that time too. I had just bought an island on Lake Nipigon, and I was getting itchy feet too. I wanted to go a little bit, and you know, when we were up there and there's only 2 of us. Like 2 major guys running that thing when we were there.
Yeah,
and we
it
did
was-
that for I don't know how many years with just Kitty. Your daughter was there, you know, and just Mike and I and running the whole show. It, you know,
Yeah, it was hard to get
hectic, boy.
time off.
Yeah, I'd go home and the phone would start ringing. And have to go back. Of course, I was bad too. I'd be out my house. I just lived a quarter of a mile, not even a quarter of a mile away. And I'd see someone walking around the yard. I'd just jump off the lawnmower and walk over and sell them a vehicle.
Yeah. And that's Herman's downside today. You can go and look around a lot and nobody will ever come out and speak to you. Even in Thunder Bay, Herman's kind of gone and looked at vehicles. Nobody comes out, but you're right. And I can remember going up there, and as soon as he was out of his vehicle, there was somebody coming out the door
20 seconds.
to talk. To talk to him.
I mean, we didn't. It wasn't a hard sell thing.
No,
You
it was
know,
a
we
push.
would come out and I'd just say to somebody, "Help yourself. If there's anything you want me to open up and have a look at, I'll be right in my office and
Yeah.
I'll just give you a
If you
shout.
want to go for a ride,
You want to
here
go
you
for a
are.
ride? Let me know. You know." Yeah,
So pretty soon it become time that you knew you wanted time to yourself, rather
Yeah,
than
and it was and
than
we had talked
working.
to a few other people that we just couldn't really make a deal with. But then
I met Ross Fowler at trade school in Sault Ste. Marie. And him and I become very, very good friends. And his name come up, and this is where we got the interest in him. And Ford was looking at, because he was a Mazda dealer, and Ford is affiliated with Mazda. And that's,
so Ford liked him, so that was a good start, you know. And we eventually hammered out a deal, and he part of the deal was that Albert and I continued to work there for
that was Ford Motor Company.
for 6 months, just in the transition. That's initially that's what it was, I think. Just
2 years. I was there for 2 years
Well,
after.
yeah, but I think initially it was just for 6 months, and then he came back at the end of the 6 months and said, you know, would you stay for like another 6 months?
Well, you left, I think, before
And I
me.
said, well, I kind of like psyched myself up now for retirement. So I'm not really that keen. But I said, I'll tell you what, I'll work 3 days a week for 6 months. Albert continued, you know, full time. And it was during that 6 months of working 3 days a week that I realized that, yes, retirement is what I wanted, because I dreaded those 3 days I had to go to work.
Right.
And it was easy work because we weren't managing the place. They had their own management people, and we were just
Well, kind of. I was.
doing a little bit, but
I was
we
more
were
in
doing
the
the fun
mechanical
stuff,
part of it with
really,
them there too,
the
eh?
sales.
Right.
Yeah.
So tell me and explain to people how it's still called Brennan Ford.
That was part of the deal.
Okay.
They wouldn't buy it unless I left my name there.
Okay.
Yeah. The reputation, they wanted that, eh?
And it made sense, I mean, obviously you don't want to have to start rebranding yourself, The only rebranding we did was when I went to work for Brennan's. It was Brennan Brothers.
Oh, right.
And of course, when I bought David out, I said, well, that's got to change.
Right.
So we just
But
we just dropped the brothers.
yeah, but the
I mean,
real
it's just-
company name was A&D Brennan Motor Sales.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yes. Right.
Operating as Brennan
Brennan
Ford.
Ford Mercury,
Ford,
yeah.
right.
But everything you did, Glenna, you had to pass it with Ford Motor Company. You couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
Nothing at all.
Yeah, they were.
No,
They held, and every one of these dealers around here, I imagine General Motors and Chrysler are the same too.
Yeah.
They keep you right in tow. You can't step out of line one bit.
so you got a paper in front of you there, Mike. What's on the paper?
Well, it's funny. I was trying to remember some details of things, and he says, "Oh, I think I got some paper clippings." This is
It's here too.
one of yours. Look at young Glenna there.
Yeah. Oh,
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it was just
oh,
basically
talking about
telling the story that we're at right now.
oh, on the way to retirement.
On the way
right.
to retirement. Yeah. But yeah, it worked out great for us. I mean, say timing was everything. I remember when we got paid out
Yeah.
the final payment from Ross Fowler. I think it was that same week that the check showed up. Red Rock announced they were shutting the mill, and I went,
But that
"What
wasn't
about talking about timing being everything?" And
wrong like it already it was down. Like it happened fast when it.
happened fast.
Yeah.
But I even working in them 2 years that I stayed, I seen a big change, boy. The people just weren't coming in like they were before.
Yeah.
Well, I think what happened too, the dealers in Thunder Bay had pretty well had their own way for so long.
Mhm.
They were pretty arrogant about, that's the price. You want it? You don't want it? Off you go. And it took them a long time to sort of catch on that we were.
Low overhead.
They were making it so easy for us. It was stupid,
Right.
And a lot of times it wasn't even about price.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember a young woman coming in one day and she was looking for a Mustang. She'd called first and said, I said, yeah, I'll be right down. And she just came down, looked at it, liked it, made the deal, and she said, let me tell you why I'm buying this Mustang from you. She said, we were in Thunder Bay. The salesman came out and showed me the Mustang and says, well, look, I'm a little busy right. Why don't you bring your husband back and we can sit down and... So that was the the arrogance that they
Yeah.
had, and yeah, so it wasn't always about the price, but generally speaking, we could kill them on price. I mean, you looked at our overhead, especially in the early days. Like I say, we had a 2 big garage and a camper trailer.
Right.
But we run like that for even with when we built the thing. We still was you and I there a long time before we hired Maynard or
Sure
Herman
was,
Manila.
yeah. So our overhead, we could end up making probably as much or even more money per sale once you had calculated all their hidden costs, their overhead.
Right.
I mean, I look at Pinewood Mercury or Intercity Ford or any of them. What are they paying for property taxes? I know what we were paying.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what they were paying. So you look at all those things, and that's how we could do it. Our overhead was so much less.
Right.
And another thing, getting back a little bit, but Mike and I are like black and white. I'd be on Lake Nipigon sitting around the fire at the Grow Cap. Mike would be at the golf course. I remember talking to a guy at the fire, and he said, "How old are you?" And I said, 29 or something like that. And he said, "You're telling me you own a Ford dealership?" I said, "Yeah." And I said, "And we got one in Red Rock." And he said, "We got this going too." I think he was from Amco Machine Shop. And he says, "I'm looking for a Ford truck." And I said, "Well, you're talking to the right guy." And Got home, Monday morning I phoned him, sold him a truck right over the phone. And Mike could be at the golf course talking to people.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it was,
That's the way it is.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the way it was. And also we had, obviously Albert grew up in Nipigon, so, okay. Albert grew up in Nipigon, so, there were people that he knew from childhood.
Right.
I didn't know from a hole in the ground, So he had his sort of
Right.
clientele, and anybody that was from Thunder Bay that didn't know either one of us, then it was generally,
Right.
they were my customer then,
And as we wind that up, I thought it was unique that Mike's father-in-law was the Reeve and Albert's dad was once the Reeve. So you two have got lots of connections.
Oh, I don't want to tell you
Nipigon.
too, Glenna. My dad had a lot of influence on us, boy. We'd get into some situations there, and I said, "Hold it, I got to make a phone call." Yeah,
Oh,
and he'd
okay.
come and settle us right down.
There you are.